Within the endless possibilities of creation, there are thousands of multiverses to be found. And every once in a blue moon, some of those multiverses collide to create an entirely new reality. This is but one of them. On Earth 6291, in the grand city of New Metropolis, a figure swings through the city. This blue and red blur has been called many names: hero, menace, vigilante, protector, but everyone recognizes him as the way past cool SPIDER-HOG. You see, 5 years prior, Nicky Parker was adopted by his uncle Chuck. Nicky was prone to having a bit of an attitude, but he had a good heart underneath it all. On one fateful day, the young Parker went on a science field trip with his good friend, Miles Prowler. Nicky couldn't give a dime about science, but he would always be there for his little buddy. Little did the hedgehog realize, this field trip would change his life forever. You see, the brilliant but morally questionable scientists at Robotnik Industries were testing the effects of chaos energy on spiders, trying to bring out the best in their genes. Little did they know, one of those spiders got loose. Crawling throughout the lab, it eventually made its way to Nicky Parker. Parker noticed it and tried slapping the spider. Feeling agitated, the spider bit him right on the arm. The spider's venom had been mutated by the chaos energy, and when it came in contact with Parker's blood, it mutated, giving Nicky amazing powers. Nicky could now run at supersonic speeds and had the proportionate strength of a spider. Nicky revealed his new powers to his good friend Miles, hoping that he could use his science nerd stuff to help figure out what was going on. His words, not mine. The young Prowler was excited to experiment, figuring out the upper limits of Nicky's new abilities. After a bit of testing, it was revealed that not only did Nicky have new strength and speed, but he also had a sixth sense, known as a sonic sense, and could crawl up walls. After a few weeks of pushing his absolute limits, Nicky couldn't think it could get any cooler. But then, Prowler revealed a pair of web shooters he had built so that Parker could easily get around the city by using his speed and strength in tandem with them. Now with a single web and a good running start, Parker could launch himself into the air and could move from one side of the city to the other in just a few minutes. Parker was having the time of his life and was so busy enjoying his new powers that he took little note of all the crime raising. You see, Nicky wasn't the only accident that Robotnik Industries had created. In the eyes of their CEO and founder, Norman Robotnik, safety and ethics are a loose concept, to say the least. You see, Norman was a scientific genius, responsible for many of the technological advancements in New Metropolis. With his hard work and determination, he was able to solve nearly any problem the city had. But he was also responsible for creating a lot of those problems. Under the table, he would fund criminal organizations and create supervillains, and then he would sell weapons to stop those villains to the military and law enforcement. And Norman is more than prepared to deal with any whistleblowers that try to blow his operation. You see, although Norman tries to be presentable on the surface, deep down, he's quite a monster. A goblin, if you will. With a glider, a purple and green suit, and a series of pumpkin bombs, he'll deal with anyone who gets in his way. Now, of course, none of this mattered to Nicky. After all, as long as he can live and learn what he can really do, then it really doesn't matter what happens around him. That was until life taught him a painful lesson. It was just another day as Spider-HOG was swinging around the city when he heard a cry for help. There was some strange robot, a bizarre fusion of a jack-o'-lantern and a ladybug, causing havoc. Of course, this wasn't Nicky's concern, so he just swung off. That's when he heard a large explosion and a familiar scream. It was from Uncle Chuck. You see, the robot had self-destructed, killing several people. Chuck was lucky enough to be far enough away from the explosion to survive, but he wouldn't be alive much longer unless he got medical assistance. Nicky, fearing for his uncle's safety, swung Chuck over to the nearest hospital, but they told him there was already nothing they could do. That was when Mr. Robotnik walked into the room, generously offering to give him a free test of their roboticization healing program. As there was no other option, the doctors prepared him for the roboticization. His flesh was replaced with metal, and soon he was nothing more than a soulless machine. Alive in the most technical terms, but everything that made Chuck who he was gone. Nicky mourned the passing of his uncle, but as time went on, he began to wonder, wasn't it just a bit convenient that Dr. Robotnik just happened to be in the neighborhood when this was all happening, and he just happened to have this new, advanced surgery that could save someone from this very specific injury? Nicky had to know, so that night he broke into Robotnik Industries and hacked into their computer networks, with a little help from Miles. As expected, there were blueprints for the very same robot that had injured his uncle. But just as he was opening up the file, the system was wiped of all information regarding that machine, as a cackling voice was heard from the other side of the room. Ho ho ho! Did you think I wouldn't be smart enough to delete my search history, Hedgehog? This, of course, was Norman Robotnik in his egg goblin attire. I must admit, it took some real talent to get in here. How about a truce? We could do some wonderful things together. Nicky snarled. And work for a monster like you? No way! No one says no to me! A brief fight broke out between the two combatants. Though SPIDER-HOG had the upper hand, the Egg Goblin called in reinforcements, and before long, his series of badniks invaded the room and began overwhelming the wall runner. Before long, SPIDER-HOG had to retreat to fight another day. As if to add insult to injury, Dr. Robotnik had sent footage of SPIDER-HOG breaking into his factory to the newspaper, the Daily Chaotix, spinning a story of how SPIDER-HOG was a supervillain that had been manipulating his technology to hurt innocent civilians. Now not only does SPIDER-HOG have to avenge his uncle, but has to clear his own name. And all of this could have been avoided if SPIDER-HOG hadn't ignored that badnik. For the last 5 years, SPIDER-HOG has been protecting the streets of New Metropolis from anyone who would threaten it, trying to make up for that mistake. Sometimes it's hard to know what's wrong and what is right, but he just listens to the voice inside, telling him that with great power comes great responsibility.